Manawaker Studios Flash Fiction podcast is supported by patrons on Patreon. To find out more or to add your support for as little as $1 a month, visit patreon.com/Manawaker. Welcome to Manawaker Studios Flash Fiction podcast. I'm C.B. Droege. This week, The Man with No Face by Julie Ann Jochum. Here's a scenario for you. Knock, knock on someone's door and then it opens. A girl stands there. You have never seen her before, and she has been crying. You can tell this by the redness of face, the blankness of look, the wetness of eyelashes pressed together like needles. She closes the door. She is gone. Do not be sad. You have often been surprised by your own voice after the storm. It is loud, robust. Inside you are still withered, but your throat booms like a ringmaster. Good night, or hello. So it was with the man with no face, in a sense. Mrs. Turner was the first to see him. She noticed him on the way back from her self-defense class at the YWCA. He was hurrying across his front lawn from his mailbox, an opened envelope jammed into his pocket, two hands covering the place where his face would be if he had one, to keep the insides from falling out. Mrs. Turner, strong from her self-defense class, her aerobics class, and her racquetball lessons, jogged along after him. The man with no face reached his door before she did, though, and her eyes were too sweat-wet to see what was under his right hand when his left pushed the key into the door. Mrs. Turner pounded on his closed door with both fists. "Hello in there! Come out!" "Hello," he called strongly through the door, probably surprised that he, a man with no face, his not face still jiggling from the run, could sound so normal. "I'm sorry, but this is not a good time." He would not open the door. Mrs. Turner was greatly disappointed. After all, it was she who had first seen the man with 5 imaginary children, she who had been most instrumental in driving him out of town. She claimed also to have discovered the man who can fly when he is invisible, although we knew this to be false vanity, for it was Harry who discovered him. Harry sold him a bar of soap. As for the woman who speaks never and blinks never, no one laid claim to her, for we did not notice her until she was gone. When Mrs. Turner told us that the man with no face had moved in, we were very excited. We had been afraid that, after what happened with the man who sings dirty songs in his mind, no one else would want to move here. We collectively longed to see the man with no face. We decided to catch him the next day on his way to the mailbox. If he covered his not face again, there would be enough of us to overtake him and force his hands away. We gathered at his house the next afternoon, approximately 10 minutes after the mail truck came. The door of the man with no face's house opened. We gasped. He wore a mask, expertly crafted, a face. It was almost impossible to distinguish such a skillful reproduction from the real thing. Still, if you looked closely, you could see imperfections. One eye was slightly larger than the other. The arc of the nose protruded just a little too much. The man with no face looked at us, lined up on the road in front of his lawn. At first it seemed that the mask was immobile. Then, impressively, it rolled into an uncertain smile. We could not discern the mask's points of attachment, so we did not attempt to remove it at that time. The man with no face waded through our silence to his mailbox, and then back into his house. The door closed. We were left to imagine what lay under the mask, milky and soft. This has been The Man with No Face, written by Julie Ann Jochum. For more information about Manawaker Studios' other projects, including books and games, visit manawaker.com, which is also where you should go to learn more about the authors featured on this podcast or to get details about submitting a story. The Flash Fiction Podcast theme song is by Kevin MacLeod. Manawaker Studios' director of DICE is Ben Baston. I'm CB Droege. You can follow me on Twitter and Facebook at CBDROEGE. Thanks for listening. On the next installment of Manawaker Studios' Flash Fiction podcast, the lighting in the interview room was subdued, the chairs well but not too well stuffed, and the table in the middle of it all was made of warm, honey-colored faux wood. "Let me do most of the talking," the matchmaker said. "I know what your family is looking for and how much they're willing to pay."